It's a real thing now.
OG, big fish. We the ones that you wanna get with. Took a couple L's, rung a couple bells. Real ones, too legit for coin telling. Straight
Straight shoot
shooters,
dives,
all
all
troopers.
troopers.
Me and the guys ain't never been losers. See a nice little ting, we pursue her. See a nice little, yeah. I'm moving with a purpose, bigger than a service. You can never, even if you rehearse this. We
Grand rising, great people.
big difference. That's worth less, yes.
Yes.
All we do is impress.
Yes, 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 yes. Who's already in? Let me see. Hold on. Uncompetitive is in the building early. Uncompetitive. Hold on. Uncompetitive is in the building early. Just thought y'all needed to know that.
Yeah, everyone want to range, but the value that you bring, little boy, smart change. I'm just saying, that's life, man. You control your destiny simply with your mind frame. You go hard from the gate every day, clean slate, and patience is a privilege. I ain't got so I wait. OG, big fish.
All right, all right, all right. Let me turn this down a little bit. All right, happy Monday to all. Hope you all had an amazing holiday weekend. Please, as you're joining, make sure that you like, and subscribe. That's going to boost the algorithm. We need as many people in the building as possible engaging in this convo. As you can see with the thumbnail, I don't know if y'all caught that, a little spicy with the thumbnail. Perhaps. Doesn't really seem that spicy to me. I'll be totally honest. Let me get center. Doesn't seem that spicy to me. I'll be totally honest because it just seems like something that should be pretty obvious at this point. When I say that the chickens are coming home to roost, what do I mean? Now, for those that are familiar with why that saying became very popular, when JFK passed away, Malcolm X made the comment that the chicken's coming home to roost. And when he made that comment, he actually was put on timeout by the Nation of Islam. He was already on bad terms with them, was supposed to be silenced for a certain amount of days for some other things that he had got involved with when he was getting ready to split with the Nation of Islam. And he made the comment that he said a few things. Matter of fact, do I have the entire thing that he mentioned? He said, "It was, as I saw it, a case of the chickens coming home to roost. I said that the hate in white men had not stopped with the killing of defenseless black people, but that hate allowed to spread unchecked had finally struck down this country's chief magistrate." So those were his comments being around the chickens coming home to roost. And he mentioned, I think the exact quote is, "Being an old farm boy myself, chickens coming to roost never did make me sad. They've always made me glad." Now, the more I learn about RFK Jr., first and foremost, the more I learned about JFK, where we will be talking about RFK Jr. today and some of the work that he's doing on the health side of things. But the more I learned about JFK, obviously I wasn't born then, the more I learned about him, he was going to be a very significant president. He was going to be a very significant president. A lot of people may think that he already was a significant president, but there seems to be a lot of things that he was putting in play that we're now seeing the impact of not having those things put in play, how they've impacted us. Different things with Israel, different things across the board, even different things when it comes to the health that RFK Jr. talks about a lot. But when it comes to the chickens coming home to roost, what do I mean? What do I mean? All right, so let me kind of give y'all a little bit of insight on how I spent some of my weekend. And let me actually get y'all the exact movie. So there's a movie, Kevin Costner, Western movie on Netflix. All right, so I watched this 3-hour Kevin Costner movie. I believe it says it's Kevin Costner's passion project. I believe he might have wrote it. He may have, did he write it? I believe he wrote it. He produced it and maybe directed it. I'm not sure. You guys can check it out. But Kevin Costner's, he's turning into the new age. What was the guy? What was the popular guy, the actor that used to play in all the Western movies? Clint Eastwood. He's turning into the new Clint Eastwood when it comes to a lot of these Westerns. And Kevin Costner, he put out this movie Horizon. I believe it came out last year. And the only reason I noticed it is because they were getting ready to take it off Netflix. You know how Netflix will highlight, hey, this is only here till July 25th or something like that. So I decided, you know what? I'm a big Yellowstone fan. Let me take a look at this. So I found myself going down a rabbit hole when there were a few scenes in the movie when they were scalping the Native Americans. And I don't know about y'all and your upbringing or schooling, but when I grew up, when I was learning in school, is more so that the natives were savages. We knew that they liked living off the land and that they were very particular. They didn't waste, a lot of animal products. They would use the animal bones for their utensils, all these different things. But it was very much, it was conveyed to us that they were the savages and that the Europeans coming over, they were the more sophisticated ones. And when it came to this thing of scalping, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with scalping, where very brutal, after you kill somebody or as you're killing somebody or whatever way you go about it, they would take a knife and cut the scalp of somebody's head off. And obviously you can imagine that that was very brutal. So I started thinking, and I was like, I remember, even though I grew up being taught more that this was a Native American thing that they were doing to Europeans that came over, I started to think about, wait, weren't Americans doing that? And it set me down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I'll try to, if I can, I don't really need to pull up the chat GPT for you all. But I believe that, matter of fact, I have it on my phone. I have it on my phone. Don't trip. I don't even need it. I don't need it. You know what I mean? I don't need it. Just having a combo with y'all. And I started to look up on chat GPT and I said, did Americans scalp natives? And a whole bunch of stuff came out that was disturbing. And during different wars or whatever, I guess who deems it a war, right? Well, I want your land. You don't want to give it to me. So now it's a war. So me pretty much in the process of stealing your land, one of the strategies that the American government or the European government implemented at that particular time was paying for scalps. In any territory that they wanted to take over, they paid people, not the military, they paid people, all right, everybody, for scalps. So imagine going into somebody else's land and being incentivized to not only take their land, but to kill everyone on the property. And something that stood out to me, and obviously this is Chat GPT, so, we got to take it with a grain of salt at some point. But I would love to see anybody, give me any conflicting information. One of the things that I saw was that it was either 12 and older or above 12, let's say 12, any scalp that was 12 and older, especially a male scalp, was worth something like 100 pounds or something like that. I believe that was the number. And it doesn't matter the amount that they're paying for it, but just from a standpoint that the government was paying people, or I don't know, the government, the military, whatever you want to call it at that point, because how can you govern a land that's not yours? Right? So for me to say the government was paying people, I guess that's a little bit misleading. But whoever was coming here to try to take land that didn't belong to them, they were getting paid by their government, wherever they came from, to collect the scalps of Native Americans. And the ones that were really incentivized at a higher amount were 12 and older. 12 and older. That's insane. That level of evil that we all stand on as we're celebrating July 4th over the weekend, as we appreciate all these freedoms that we have in this country, as we appreciate the ease and comfort of this country that we live in, I got to be honest, it kind of just makes you think. It kind of just makes you think. And the thoughts that were going through my mind directly pointed to what's going on in Palestine. We hear about half the people that have been killed have been women and children. And we call these Arab Muslim savages, right? Terrorists. And when I think about it and look, let's just say at the last 500 years since Europeans came to America, and just around the world, who's committed the most terror throughout the world? Let me ask you this question first. When you think in your mind, let's just be honest about who's a savage, the type of people that were portrayed as savages. Remember when Black people were enslaved in America, and the reason that they were giving is because they're less than their 3/5 or whatever. That was more on the voting side, but they're beastly beings and they're savages. So therefore, them being enslaved, we're actually doing them a favor. I'm not sure if you've heard those arguments, but I have. Just doing different research, reading different things. Those are some of the justifications of slavery. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, damn, Black and brown people across the world have been regarded as beastly savages. Beastly savages. In my mind, I'm thinking like of the pictures where they try to make the big strong nigga the like a image of a gorilla. You know what I mean? Like those type of things. I've seen these. I don't even know where I've seen them, but they're just, the images are coming to my mind. And I'm sitting here thinking like, damn, Black and brown people, when I look at things for the last 500 years, what savage acts have been committed? And there have been some. You look at Africa, some of the things, and shout out to Trump. I believe he just brokered a deal or a peace treaty between was it the Congo, Republic of Congo? I forget these. I don't want to, but maybe we'll cover that this week. But I'm just sitting here with these thoughts and how we're programmed and how we're propagandized to see different things in a certain way. So therefore, we won't have any empathy or sympathy for the struggle or the evil that another group of people are going through. Now, I'm not at all sitting here trying to act as if white people commit more evil acts than Black people, regardless of history. I'm not trying to say that inherently what a lot of people actually, it's funny because I guess I have to defend this, even though we grow up in America almost assuming that Black people are more inherently dangerous, right? Let's just be honest. That's just something that has always been propagandized in America. So now I'm sitting here because I'm just looking at what has happened. Last time I checked, Black people weren't the Nazis. Last time I checked, Black people weren't, coming to America and terrorizing Americans and paying for indigenous scalps. Last time I checked, even when it comes to, I guess separate the Black and brown people. Now, the Arab slave trade, that was something that was obviously very vicious. But I don't want to get into the tit for tat because that's not where I'm trying to go with this. What I'm trying to go with it is just to remind us how things can be propagandized in a way and conveyed to us in a way that we are completely misled. We are completely misled to the point where we'll sit here and be okay with justifying 100,000 Palestinians dying or whatever number it is. We don't know. Let's say it's 70,000. We'll do a safe number, 70,000 Palestinians dying just because, and I have to say it like that, just because. It is just because. Because, or you want me to take the just out? Because 200 people were kidnapped. Think about that. So as these thoughts are coming to mind, and I'm watching this TV, I'm watching this movie over the weekend, it kind of reminded me this morning of when I was choosing a title for the show, because sometimes I'll get up and, choose the title as I'm putting everything together. The chickens have come home to roost across the country, across the world. The chickens have come home to roost. Energy is real. People that don't believe in energy, in my opinion, are just looking to excuse or validate their poor behavior, or not acknowledge that any evil that you do eventually is going to come back. Any evil that you put out is eventually going to come out. So when we look at these Iranians and we say that they're deaf to America and they're terrorists, and we're going to watch a bunch of different videos, and one in particular, the guy Adam from Valuetainment, he made a comment that said when Palestinians care more about their kids, and I've heard this before, he's not the first person to say it, but he was saying a popular quote that when Palestinians care more about their kids, or when those Muslims, those terroristic Muslims care more about their kids than they hate Jewish people, then peace will be more realistic. And I just was scratching my head when I heard this, and I'm like, yo, the nerve, the audacity, like the elitism of that type of statement is insane. But a lot of people actually believe that. A lot of intelligent people, a lot of powerful people, a lot of people that control this world that we live in, they actually will convey this to us to have us thinking this type of thing. So we just look at all the evil stuff that we're doing to justify having more wars, making more money, right, for our military industrial complex, all these different things. It's all just BS. It's all just propaganda. It is all just propaganda. And this is why I call BS on a lot of this stuff. And this is why even when I get into conversations with a lot of the people that I agree upon policy-wise when it comes to conservative values, conservative things of that nature, we always come to a standstill at a lot of these points. And I'm realizing that the only way, or what I believe is the reason why we come to a standstill at a lot of these points, is because deep down, we've been conditioned to believe that certain people's lives matter more than others. It just is what it is. Like, there's absolutely no way that you can be a Zionist, a Jewish Zionist person, and think that you're entitled to some land where nobody living on that land ever looked like you, ever had your skin tone. Your people don't come from that. Let's just be honest. Like, you're European. You can say that you were connected through religion. You can say that you connected through these things. And even when I type this in the chat GPT, I'm sitting here saying, like, yo, how can people claim a land where nobody in the region looks like these people? Now they'll say, oh, well, they spent 1,000 years up north in the cold, so therefore it changed the color of their skin. That's BS. That's BS. I don't care if my mother could spend 1,000, people that the lightest skin as my mother could spend 1,000 years in on the North Pole, and they're still not going to look like Europeans look. It just is what it is. What did they say? Okay, you're going to spend 1,000 years in the cold, and you're only going to, they told these black or brown people in that region, you're only going to have sex with white people. You can only, even if they did that, it's just not possible. But that's not the point that I want to land on. The audacity and the elitism comes when you're currently living on land that was stolen from people within the last few hundred years. Watch every Western movie. It's it's like plain as day. Like, they're literally pulling up to land that was not theirs. They're putting out flyers. They're selling lots of land that they do not own. And they're just taking it from people and saying, hey, we got $100 on any scalp of any Native American over 12 years old. Collect some scalps. We're getting rid of these people. That's how this land that we're living on was founded. I'm sorry, was renamed. I guess that's the proper word. Was conquered. And it was conquered. You gotta give it to people. It was conquered. But how can you have the audacity to ask people, do we think that Israel is entitled to exist or Israel has the right to exist, while you're literally living on land, buying a whole bunch of it? I got a lot of Jewish buddies who are Zionists that own a lot of land. But you're buying something that you wouldn't be okay with if the shoe was on the other foot when it comes to Israel. So it's just all like, as I sit back and just think of these things, it just puts me in a very, maybe interesting position, or gives me, or just, I'm looking at it from an interesting perspective that perhaps a lot of other people, a lot of my friends, a lot of other people, maybe period, don't have this perspective. Like I told y'all before, one of the biggest gifts that I've been granted is the ability to interact with a lot of different people that come from a lot of different backgrounds and cultures. And I'm able to have these conversations with them. And I've gotten to the point where I realize, or I believe that deep down, people know the evil that they're doing. The people know that the evil that they're condoning. But we've just been so conditioned to look the other way, or to blatantly just tell a lie in people's face, or first off in the mirror, that we start to believe our own BS. So those were just some of the thoughts that I just wanted to start off the show. So what we're going to get into, we're going to finish the letter. For those that didn't tap into the show on Friday, we actually were listening to the letter that Osama bin Laden wrote, his manifesto, based on why they decided to do 9/11, commit the 9/11 attacks. So now that you're kind of thinking, like, remember, so I should have added this to the context earlier. We were watching that on Friday. Where Osama bin Laden's speaking on the reasons why he did all these things, the reasons why he's committed to war against America. And the reasons that he's giving, I'm sitting here, I'm soaking it in. And then I'm watching the Western movie and I'm like, damn, America been committing some pretty evil acts for a very long time for us to believe that it won't come back to us, that these chickens won't come home to roost. It's pretty arrogant. It's pretty fucking arrogant. And I'm just like, I don't know where to go from it, or where to go. And I don't have an answer for any of this or solving any of these worldly problems. And I was talking to, so the person I speak to the most about it is my big bro, Pete. We just talk from a spiritual standpoint, and we connect a lot of the history. Thank you. To the spirituality of everything, connecting all of us under God, this oneness. So the oneness, and when I say oneness, that always comes back to the only solution that there is. When we each see all of us as one, then we'll start to treat each other better. If we each understand that, hey, we're on the same team, we're in this together, I believe that's the first step. I don't know if that's the ultimate solution, or if things, once that happens, magically everything's good. But I don't think that we need to have an answer right now for us to understand that we need to position ourselves and move in that direction. You know what I mean? Like, we understand that the North Star, okay, the golden rule, we're treating each other how we want to be treated. The North Star, peace, all these things that we all wish that we could live in harmony and what it would look like. We understand the direction that we have to walk into. We may not necessarily know exactly how to get there, but in my opinion, that shouldn't stop us from starting to walk there, from starting to get there. You may not know how you're going to lose 100 pounds, but That just because you don't know how you're going to lose all 100 doesn't mean you shouldn't start by doing something today where maybe you could lose a pound in the next week. I don't know. But it's just become more and more. And I know my thoughts are all over the place, but I just want to start off the show where I'm just kind of sharing y'all exactly where my mind is, where I'm just sitting here like I'm questioning so many different things. I'm like, yo, is this a simulation that we're living in? Are we really just getting gamed? Is this really just somebody not up in the clouds, but just from a powerful standpoint, just picking and choosing what's going to happen, like really playing chess with our lives? I'm really sitting here thinking that because, even from a situation where, I was talking to Pete about, migrants and what they're coming in here doing, where they're trying to be very selective now with what migrants they're going to get rid of and what people they're going to get rid of. And it's almost to the point where is this like their idea of like natural selection when it comes to, who's going to be in America? Are we eventually going to have, and I was talking to Pete about this, a Patriot score where like other countries are kind of implementing similar things, but pretty much a Patriot score where everything that I do, let's say I'm playing this Osama bin Laden video, I'm Googling Osama bin Laden, I'm Googling certain things. So my Patriot score goes down. But then Pete was saying like, oh, but if you post about July 4th and celebrating the Independence Day, maybe your score goes up. If I take a picture in an American, like all these different things, are we getting to that to where we're going to, where the powers that be are going to have so much information on us that is going to be how they keep track of us, keep us in line, and pretty much just spy on us to make sure that nobody's messing up their vision and their goal for what America is. So going back to the migration thing, I was sitting here and I'm like, okay. I'm like, the Democrats, they had to know that you shouldn't just open up the border, right? Like just from a standpoint of that. And maybe I shouldn't have said the Democrats, but let's just say America. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Take Democrat and Republican out of it. Let's just look at it from an American standpoint. The country of America and the leaders of America had to know that it probably wasn't the best thing to just open up your borders, right? We've heard people on all different sides, all different teams. I'm not going to mention the different teams, but prominent people who have been presidents on both sides in our lifetime call for the need to have a border. Strong border. Call for the need to have an actual wall on both sides. Maybe more on the side. Maybe more people have actually called for it on the side that you don't think, compared to the person that obviously got famous and that was their rallying cry of build the wall. But just from a country standpoint, they had to know that just opening up your borders is not going to be like a favorable thing for America, especially coming in at those numbers, that how it would impact us, how it would be such a heavy weight for American citizens to then have to pay when it comes to taxes to support people that come in here. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, the only way to justify that would be to have people hate the person so much who's saying that they're going to build the wall. And then it would justify people now saying, no wall, we're welcoming people in. And then the only way to justify deporting certain types of people is to have people then hate the fact that all these people came in here illegally, because it justifies, well, we got to deport people. You got 10 million people that came in here illegally. What are we supposed to do? They came here illegal. So I'm just realizing, hold on. I took my charger out, but I realized that the computer runs better with the charger in. I don't like to overcharge it, but whatever. So I'm just sitting here thinking like, yo, all this is just like a game. This entire thing is just a game being played on all of us. Everything. It's all just seems like a game. It all just seems like somebody's playing The Sims and they're trying to figure out, they got different goals for the characters. and we're just sitting here thinking that we're making up our own minds, thinking that we're free thinkers. But in all actuality, we're just being controlled by the propaganda that gets presented to us. Just me. So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. And I know that was probably a lot to digest, but those were just kind of the thoughts that I was having about all this. I mean, what are you guys thinking when you're looking at all this stuff going? It's a joke. This stuff is a joke. Like you get. I'm going to show you something. So we have a bunch of different clips today. So we're going to look at bin Laden. We're going to finish that letter, that manifesto. We're going to discuss. There's a clip from Tucker Carlson where he's interviewing somebody. And hold up. I'm going to try to review it on the show with y'all. But Tucker Carlson just announced, I think on Friday, I actually just signed up for his website. You had to pay for this interview. But he interviewed the Iranian president. He interviewed the Iranian president, and it's getting ready to come out soon. But neither here nor there. I just had to tell y'all that. I was excited. But Tucker Carlson is interviewing somebody who seems to have a lot of knowledge in this area, where they're discussing that America allegedly sponsored Saddam Hussein in Iraq with chemical warfare that I believe they got from the Germans, this technology or something. That we'll look at the video, in order to use on Iranians. So it's like America tries to act like we don't have a hand in a lot of this stuff, or we're just the righteous people that, like, you know, we kill people, but not in the way that they kill people. Like, we kill people strategically, like, you know, in a proper way. You know what I mean? It's almost, that's like kind of like what Israel's saying, like, yeah, well, we destroyed a country. Yeah, but, you know, we did it it was very strategic how we went about it. We just had to do it because, you know, they had tunnels. So therefore we had to destroy the entire thing. And then we got to go. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at maybe a couple other videos. We were supposed to watch a video with RFK Jr. discussing some of the health advancements that we're making in his role. But honestly, probably won't get to that because that's probably going to end up on the back burner. What else do we have? Yeah, I think we can, and then we'll finish off, and I got a question for y'all about your personal legend. So let's take a look at, we're going to skip this icebreaker that we had with Derrick Henry. We'll move that to the end. Let me move that to the end. Just talking about the importance of fathers, all right, and how his father played a role. Shout out to Derrick Henry and his pops. Let's take a look at this valuetainment video. Let's finish the letter. We'll finish the letter to America from Osama bin Laden first, and then we'll move on with the rest. All right, so let me share this. Make sure y'all like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we shall get into our first video. All right, and as always, any disagreements, if you're seeing it differently, just let me know. I haven't been able to look at the comments as much, but real quickly, shout out to Skeeg in the building, OG Bonds in the building. Of course, Uncompetitive is in the building. So we'll keep it moving from here. All right.
You also permit drugs and only forbid the trade of them, even though your nation is the largest consumer of them. You're a nation that permits acts of immorality, and you consider them to be pillars of personal freedom. You have continued to sink down this abyss from level to level until incest has spread amongst you, in the face of which neither your sense of honor nor your laws object. Who can forget your President Clinton's immoral acts committed in the official Oval Office? After that, you did not even bring him to account, other than that he made a mistake, after which...
And once again, just so we're aware, I know I said it before I went on rambling, but this is the letter from Osama bin Laden that he wrote to America, his manifesto, giving the reason why they committed those acts on 9/11.
Everything passed with no punishment. Is there a worse kind of event for which your name will go down in history and remembered by nations? You are a nation that permits gambling in its all forms. The companies practice this as well, resulting in the investments becoming active and the criminals becoming rich. You are a nation that exploits women like consumer products or advertising tools, calling upon customers to purchase them. You use women to serve passengers, visitors, and strangers to increase your profit margins. You then rant that you support the liberation of women. You are a nation that practices the trade of sex in all its forms, directly and indirectly. Giant corporations and establishments are established on this, under the name of art, entertainment, tourism, and freedom, and other deceptive names you attribute to it. And because of all this, you have been described in history as a nation that spreads diseases that were unknown to man in the past. Go ahead and boast to the nations of man that you brought them AIDS as a satanic American invention. You have destroyed nature with your industrial waste and gases more than any other nation in history. Despite this, you refuse to sign the Kyoto Agreement so that you can secure the profit of your greedy companies and industries. Your law is the law of the rich and wealthy people who hold sway in their political parties and fund their election campaigns with their gifts. Behind them stand the Jews who control your policies, media, and economy. That which you are singled out for in the history of mankind is that you have used your force to destroy mankind more than any other nation in history, not to defend principles and values, but to hasten to secure your interests and profits. You who dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan, even though Japan was ready to negotiate an end to the war.
A lot of people talk about that. Look, I know we like to walk around like our ish don't stink, but at some point, either we have to take accountability for the things that we've done, or like the title of this show says, the chickens will come home to roost in other ways. Now, a lot of the things that he's saying, do you necessarily, now let me be very clear. I can agree with a lot of the things that he's saying, but I absolutely don't agree with the acts that were committed on 9/11 or any terror. Don't agree with it. What I'm simply calling out is the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy that we think, for anybody to think that they can mistreat a group of people in such evil ways for so long, keep your foot on their necks for so long, because you think that you're more superior than them. Because you think that, oh, well, you know, we're better than them. So therefore, maybe it's some insecurities. Because when I think about it from a human standpoint, who are the people that are always trying to mistreat people? Those are the ones that have their own insecurities, to where now they want to flex their might and strength to prove to themselves, to cover their own insecurities, their own fears. It seems like maybe some of this is going on. Now, maybe this is why a lot of people are already doing it and will continue when this Tucker Carlson interview comes out with him interviewing the head of Iran. This is why maybe he got a lot of slack for interviewing Putin. They don't want us to have certain information. Information and influence may be the most valuable currency that we have today, period. There's a reason why that young man, I Show Speed, I believe, what did he just get? Something like 600 million for 2 years, like $1 million. Was it like $1 million a day that he just signed a deal with on Twitch? Because he has a certain level of influence and he can get eyeballs on whatever it is that he's doing. That is the most valuable currency that we have. Why do we think we pay athletes so much, entertainers so much? Because they have people looking at them. There's a reason for all of this. So when it comes to us being informed, when it comes to us hearing certain information that is not biased propaganda that our country only wants us to see, so therefore we'll have a certain mindset that will condone and promote them doing whatever to whoever around the world because it's for the greater good of us Americans. This is why this is so important. Let's keep going.
How many acts of oppression, tyranny, and injustice have you carried out, O callers to freedom? Let us not forget one of your major characteristics.
And Uncompetitive wrote something interesting. Palestinians hate Hamas and love Trump. I believe that Palestinians hate Hamas. I do believe that. I do not know if Palestinians still look at Trump the way that they looked at Trump before he became president. I'm just being totally honest. Trump made some promises that, just like, what other group of victims, right? That's what we do in politics. We make promises to groups of victims who can't solve their issues on their own. And they make certain promises to them and you like it, right? Especially when the other side, it comes out that they didn't even, and I'm talking about Biden and Kamala, and it comes out that they didn't even ask for a ceasefire. So I can understand people in Palestine, Palestinians, being very attracted to Trump, especially before he became president. But I'm not sure if that energy is the same right now. I'll just be totally honest. I'm not sure, because Palestine is gone, and it seems like they're not going to get it back. And it seems like we could potentially get involved in destroying some other nations in that region. So I don't know about that. I don't know.
Your duality in both manners and values, your hypocrisy in manners and principles. All manners, principles, and values have two scales, one for you and one for the others. The freedom and democracy that you call to is...
Whoa. We just missed that. All manners, principles, and values have two scales. Listen to what he's saying.
Let us not forget one of your major characteristics, your duality in both manners and values, your hypocrisy in manners and principles. All manners, principles, and values have two scales, one for you and one for the others.
I did not see this. Just to let y'all know, this is my first time going through this with you all. I watched maybe the first 10 minutes. We're on the 15:55 minute mark or time mark. This is exactly what we were just talking about, the hypocrisy. The chicken's coming home to roost. You can't keep slapping everybody and think that one day somebody's not going to punch you in your mouth. You can't keep slapping everybody. And we're so arrogant. We think that we could just slap everybody. We think that we can punch everybody in the face, kick everybody in the mouth, and we get upset when we get slapped. That's how arrogant we are.
The freedom and democracy that you call to is for yourselves and for white race only. As for the rest of the world, you impose upon them your monstrous, destructive policies and governments, which you call the American friends. Yet you prevent them from establishing democracies. When the Islamic Party in Algeria wanted to practice democracy and they won the election, you unleashed your agents in the Algerian army onto them and to attack them with tanks and guns, to imprison them and torture them. A new lesson from the American Book of Democracy. Your policy on prohibiting and forcibly removing weapons of mass destruction to ensure world peace. It only applies to those countries which you do not permit to possess such weapons. As for the countries you consent to, such as Israel, then they are allowed to keep and use such weapons to defend their security.
I think it's important for us always to put ourselves in the minds of our opposing perspective. Put ourselves in the shoes of them. Remember, this letter was written years ago. These acts were committed years ago. What is 9/11 is 2001, I believe. It's 24 years ago. Why is it okay? Let me ask y'all this, because one of the issues that comes up every election is gun control, right? So when you think about gun control, would any of us think that it's fair for, let's say I'm in Florida and anybody can carry a gun if you're not like a felon or whatever, and you're a certain age, okay. Based on the requirements, anybody can have one. But what if they said that, hey, all Haitians, y'all can't have guns. Everybody else can have guns, but just y'all Haitians, y'all can't have guns. Or y'all Cubans, y'all can't have guns. The Venezuelans, y'all can have guns, but Cubans, y'all can't have guns. How about this? What if it was said that every non-white person, every person of European descent, you guys can't have guns. Everybody else can. How would that make most of these NRA gun carrying folk down here in Florida feel that are white? Simple, unfair, right? I would say that that's unfair. I'd be pissed off. But and I see where y'all are going. See, I see where your minds went. See where y'all went. See, you see me trying to make the connection to why is it okay for Israel to have these weapons of mass destruction, but these other countries in the region can't? It's because they're terrorists. They're more dangerous. They can't be as responsible with these weapons as Israel is. And then the more you think about it, it kind of makes you chuckle a little bit, especially considering what's going on right now. But see, what you're probably thinking and the connection that you were making is that, well, there are stipulations on certain people. If you're a felon, then you can't have a gun. Those same rules don't apply to you. Oh, so you're saying that the Arab Muslims, drawing that connection, they would be the felons because they've already committed. They committed 9/11. How can we trust them to have the same weapons that we have? Yeah, they committed 9/11. Let's see this. Hold on. Let me look this up. How many Americans died in 9/11 attacks? Let's see. Approximately 2,977 people were killed in the attacks. And I believe that's one of the worst attacks that we've had, right? Terrorist attacks. How many Palestinians have died since October 7th? This one says 56,000. Now, the reports that I've seen are more than that, but let's just say it's 56,000. It was 2,900. Let's say 3,000. Let's say 3,000. We'll round up. I'm just trying to figure out, based on the history. Remember how I started off the show? Based on the history, who has really shown that they can be responsible with weapons and not kill people and destroy large populations of people and commit genocides? I'm just asking. So all the people that were trying to say that, oh, well, yeah, they can't be trusted with these weapons, just know that deep down, that's a racist mindset. I'm not saying that you're racist. Actually, maybe you are. I think the majority of us all are. I'm racist. I'm 100% racist. And I'll tell you how I'm racist. For me to not think twice about what's going on in Palestine, for me to kind of just come on here, a couple times a week and just talk about it, whatever. Let's say last year, I wasn't really talking about it as much, right? For me not to voice an opinion on what I believe is a genocide, for you not to voice an opinion, for you to be scared to tell some of your Jewish friends that it's a genocide, because I know a lot of people listening would be scared, nervous, right? When you talk about it, let's say you're having a discussion about it at work or you're with certain people, you're lowering your voice. The reason why you're doing those things is, in a lot of ways, some ways you could say it's because of fear. But even if the fear, why is it the fear? Because these people are more powerful. This group is more powerful. They are more important. They are a superior race. And they use that power of superiority to do what's in their best interest at the expense of a lot of others, right? Isn't that, regardless of what your definition of racism, whether your definition is one believing that one race is superior over another, or the racism, you have to have the power to then be able to use that racism and use that advantage. No matter what your definition of it is, a lot of us are racist. A lot of us exhibit racist behavior on a day-to-day basis. See, we just think that, oh, I didn't call anybody a nigger today, so therefore I'm not racist. Like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Just my opinion, though. But let's keep going.
Anyone else who you suspect might be manufacturing or keeping these kinds of weapons, you call them criminals, and you take military action against them. You are the last ones to respect the resolutions and policies of international law, yet you claim to want to selectively punish anyone else who does the same. Israel has for more than 50 years been pushing UN resolutions and rules against the wall with the full support of America. As for the war criminals which you censure and form criminal courts for, you shamelessly ask that your own are granted immunity. However, history will not forget the war crimes that you committed against the Muslims and the rest of the world. Those you have killed in Japan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Lebanon, and Iraq will remain a shame that you will never be able to escape. It will suffice to remind you of your latest war crimes in Afghanistan, in which densely populated innocent civilian villages were destroyed. Bombs were dropped on mosques, causing the roof of the mosque to come crashing down on the heads of the Muslims praying inside. You are the ones who broke the agreement with the Mujahideen when they left Kunduz, bombing them in Jangi fort and killing more than 1,000 of your prisoners through suffocation and thirst. Allah alone knows how many people have died by torture at the hands of you and your agents. Your planes remain in the Afghan skies, looking for anyone remotely suspicious. You have claimed to be the vanguards of human rights, and your Ministry of Foreign Affairs issues annual reports containing statistics of those countries that violate any human rights. However, all these things vanished when the Mujahideen hit you, and you then implemented the methods of the same documented governments that you used to curse. In America, you captured thousands the Muslims and Arabs, took them into custody with neither reason, court trial, nor even disclosing their names. You issued newer, harsher laws. What happens in Guantanamo is a historical embarrassment to America and its values, and it screams into your faces. You hypocrites! What is the value of your signature on any agreement or treaty? What we call you to, thirdly, is to take an honest stance with yourselves, and I doubt you will do so, to discover that you are a nation without principles or manners, and that the values and principles to you are something which you merely demand from others, not that which you yourself must adhere to. We also advise you to stop supporting Israel and to end your support of the Indians in Kashmir, the Russians against the Chechens.
As I'm listening to this, I just, went on Chat GPT. Maybe actually I'll share it with y'all. I'll share with y'all what I was looking at, because sometimes a lot of this stuff, like I'm thinking about all this stuff, and it comes up in different ways. So let me so this is what I just Googled, because I remember hearing about this, and the reason why I'm like, dang, how does Bin Laden know about all this stuff going on with the American government? Now, of course, there's spies on both sides and all this other stuff, as Ted Cruz so eloquently pointed out in his interview with Tucker Carlson. Even amongst friends, we spy on each other. All right, so I asked, were Osama bin Laden and the Bush family friends at one point? And it says, yes, members of the Bush family and the bin Laden family were known to have had business and personal ties at one point. But it is important to clarify the nature of these connections. The bin Laden family, particularly its patriarch, Mohammed bin Laden, was a prominent construction family in Saudi Arabia with various business dealings around the world. The Bush development, maybe we're seeing that with maybe Mr. President, I don't know. And some of his business dealings in the region, that Middle Eastern region, and some of the things when you put up Trump Gaza, what does Queez always say? Follow the money. The Bush family, through former President George H.W. Bush's involvement in the Carlyle Group, an investment firm, had indirect business ties with the Bin Laden family. What does indirect business ties mean? Very convenient, ChatGPT. Carlyle Group was a major investor in companies with connections to the Bin Laden family, but it's important to note that Osama bin Laden himself had no known involvement in these investments. Additionally, the Bin Laden family is large, and Osama bin Laden was estranged from many of its members, particularly due to his extreme views. While there were business dealings, there is no credible evidence that Osama bin Laden had any personal relationship with the Bush family. The ties between the two families were more about business rather than a close friendship. So I want to highlight this right here. It says that Osama bin Laden was estranged from many of its members, particularly due to his extreme views. Let me ask ChatGPT this. So Osama bin Laden's views are extreme because of what? And I kind of worded that in a weird way. Osama bin Laden's views are considered extreme primarily due to his radical interpretation of Islam and his advocacy for violent jihad against what he saw as enemies of Islam. He believed that the West, particularly the United States, posed a threat to Islam and Muslim nations. Does anybody think that we don't pose a threat to Islam and Muslim? Let's keep going. This perspective led him to justify acts of terrorism, including the September 11, 2011 attacks, as part of a broader global struggle to establish an Islamic state governed by his strict interpretation of Sharia law. Oh, they wanted to establish an Islamic state. Sounds kind of familiar with another. Let's stop right there. I think you guys understand where I'm getting at. One group's terrorist is another group's hero. Christopher Columbus was a terrorist to a lot of people. I just told y'all about these Westerns, these Western movies that we love to watch. Those were terrorists. I'm a Native American living peacefully on my land, just chilling. And you come into my village, you kill all the men, you rape all the women, do whatever else with them that you want. But you're the heroes and we're the savages. It's all propaganda, all of it. Why are his views, which they are radical? Let me be very clear. Hold on. Let me move this off to the side. I want to make sure that y'all understand me. His views are radical. The problem is we're only looking at his views as radical. We're not looking at the people that are killing his people as radical. How do we look at it being radical that what happened on October 7th, like that's the first thing that happened in this back and forth? How do we look at it as radical? What happened on October 7th, 200 and something people getting kidnapped, but then not look at it as radical, the retaliation to destroy Hamas, which you're never going to destroy. What's radical? So people can take the land that is already being occupied by another group, right? Oh, y'all don't even know who I'm talking about. So you just assumed that I was talking about Jews taking Palestinian land. I could have been talking about Americans taking Native American land. That kind of shows the consistency that we're seeing from time to time. Who has been the most radical? They tried to say that Malcolm X was radical. What was he radical about? Protecting himself? What was he radical? He called all white people the devil? Radical. I don't agree with that. Then he changed his stance. But you kind of got to understand maybe why he may have been like, did you ever wonder like how did Malcolm X, an intelligent person, get convinced that white people are the devils? Like what made him, did that just come out of thin air? Or was that built on radical things that were happening to black people and the frustration to not be able to stop it? The frustration living in a country where the majority of your time here, you've been treated as subhuman by people that look white or are white. And one thing that I always have to say is the reason why I think a lot of us miss this when it comes to America is that when it comes to the only group of people that have shown that they would possibly or would risk their lives for black Americans are white Americans. The Civil War is still, I believe, the most bloody war in America. Maybe not. Let me look that up. Let me see. Is the Civil War the most deadly war in America? Yes, the American Civil War remains the deadliest war in U.S. history. It is estimated that approximately 620,000 to 750,000 people died as a result of combat, disease, and other war-related causes. A lot of people died for black Americans, our fellow Americans. So you got to also point that out. That's something that it didn't really hit me maybe until recently, the way that it's hit me now, where I'm like, damn, who's been the only people to ever step up and risk their lives for black people? Now, whether that was the main issue or not, doesn't matter. If it wasn't the main issue, then, I guess they could have kept it going. I don't know. We're acting as if slavery wasn't beneficial in the North as well. There was slavery in the North as well, and it was beneficial for them as well. So we do have to acknowledge that. And I want to make sure that we always acknowledge that. But my point is that you can understand the same way that we think that Iranians, or that we look at the Muslims, or that how Israel looks at the Muslims and the Arab nations as being the devil, or they look at us as big Satan and them as little Satan. We can understand how all of these things occur, right? How these mindsets are formed, these radicalized mindsets. But the problem is we're usually getting it from a propagandized, biased standpoint that is not objective. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. And yeah, I definitely understand. In America, the most violent American war. How many Americans died in Vietnam? I think is what Maya said. Is that what you wrote? Hold on. Look up Vietnam or the war. Hold up, bub. Approximately 58,220 Americans died in the Vietnam War between 1955 and 1975. I actually thought it was a lot more. So let's be clear, that's 58,000 in Vietnam. In the American Civil War, it was 620,000 to 750,000. That's a significant difference. And oh my God, I'm so glad that you brought this point up, because shout out to Skeeg in the building. I'm so glad that you point this point up. I'm so glad that you brought this point up. Were they forced to fight, though, Skeeg? That's something that can you be forced to fight? You know why I asked that question is, can you be forced to fight? Because there were a lot of people that made the decision, like a Muhammad Ali, who said that he's not going to fight. There's a lot of people that decided to take whatever comes with not fighting, with saying, hey, this doesn't align with my spirituality. This doesn't align with my godly principles. I don't care what the government principles are. I don't care what the government says. This is not godly. And they took whatever came with it. They stood on it. So we see a lot of that happening right now. Matter of fact, this is why I always say we never seem to give that same level of compassion from an American standpoint for the people that were a part of the Nazi army. You think all the people that fought in the Nazi army, that they believed that Jews were all this stuff? No, a lot. I would assume the same way everybody in America doesn't agree with certain things, the same way that all Americans didn't agree with the Vietnam War, but a lot of them still went over to fight. Everything is a choice. And I think we should hold people accountable to that. And I think the reason why we should is because it's the only way. It's the only way. The only way for us to move to a place where we need to move, in my opinion, for us to live in a more harmonized state, is if we prioritize and hold ourselves accountable to the decisions that we're making, instead of just hiding behind, oh, well, the government told me to do it. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. All right, let's keep going. Hold up. Let's keep going.
Your goodness, guidance, and righteousness, so do not force us to send you back as cargo in coffins. Sixthly, we call upon you to end your support of the corrupt leaders in our countries. Do not interfere in our politics and method of education. Leave us alone, or else expect us in New York and Washington. We also call you to deal with us and interact with us on the basis of mutual interests and benefits, rather than the policies of subdual, theft, and occupation, and not to continue your policy of supporting the Jews, because this will result in more disasters for you. If you fail to respond to all these conditions, then prepare for fight with the Islamic nation, the nation of monotheism that puts complete trust on Allah and fears none other than Him. The nation which is addressed by its Quran with the words, "Do you fear them?" Allah has more right that you should fear Him if you are believers. Fight against them so that Allah will punish them by your hands and disgrace them and give you victory over them and heal the breasts of believing people and remove the anger of their hearts. Allah accepts the repentance of whom He wills. Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. The nation of honor and respect, but honor, power, and glory belong to Allah and to His messenger and to the believers. So do not become weak, nor be sad, and you will be superior if you are indeed believers. The nation of martyrdom, the nation that desires death more than you desire life. Think not of those who are killed in the way of Allah as dead. Nay, they are alive. Think them.
I want to run that back for a second.
Lord, repentance of whom, and give you victory over them, and heal the breasts of believing people, and remove the anger of their hearts. Allah accepts the repentance of whom He wills. Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. The nation of honor and respect, but honor, power, and glory belong to Allah and to His messenger and to the believers. So do not become weak, nor be sad, and you will be superior if you are indeed believers. The nation of martyrdom, the nation that desires death more than you desire life. Think not of those who are killed in the way of Allah as dead. Nay, they are alive with their Lord, and they are being provided for. They rejoice in what Allah has bestowed upon them from His bounty, and rejoice for the sake of those who have...
I'm not with any of this. To me, it's no different than a pastor getting up there and using God to create their own interpretation that justifies them committing a certain amount of evil, but using God to justify it in order to say, well, in this scenario, it's not evil. I don't think that that's what martyrdom should be about. This is just all my opinion. I've never studied Islam. But religion has nothing to do with God, in my opinion. Matter of fact, especially when you look around at all the, like, religion has been the most ungodly thing that we've probably ever had on this planet. Because what's the most ungodly thing that you can do? Take a life, right? So religion is not the gatekeeper to a relationship with God. So me speaking from a godly standpoint, I don't know what your scripture says. I don't know what your Torah says. I don't know what your laws say, but I can't respect, or I can't see how any God or any God would convey information that does anything other than bring us together in peace. Once one side is able to justify using God to do destructive acts, then we clearly see what's gonna, like, we know what's coming on the other side, right? Like, it's not a mystery. So I'm not with any of this. I want to be very clear. Any of it. I don't align with it. I don't support it. I don't condone it. But I do understand it. How can we not understand it? If I'm looking at two people over here and I see one person punch the other person in the face, and then I see the other person punch that person back, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I can understand why that person got punched in the face, because they punched like, I can understand it. I can see it. I can comprehend why the situation happened. But me comprehending it doesn't mean that I'm condoning it. I hope y'all understand what I'm trying to say. So Steve wrote democide. That's a term that I'm actually not familiar with. So definitely appreciate you sharing that, big bro. Democide, the intentional killing of unarmed or disarmed persons by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity. I never knew that. It is estimated that as many as 262 million people have been killed by democide in the 20th century. So I'm assuming that you're writing that in response to what we were talking about, as far as the people that commit the crimes, having to take more accountability, and not us just being able to stand behind, well, our government told us to do so. Just think about that. 262 million people democide is responsible for. Our government giving us instruction to kill people. We got to at some point recognize that this is not going to work. Our government is not the end all be all. Our government is not God, even though they try to act like it's the same thing. Matter of fact, perhaps we should look at some of these governments that do try to justify all these things by using God as the most evil. I don't know. And even if you're not looking at it as the most evil, maybe it should raise an eyebrow to say, like, And then it should maybe trigger us to do a little bit more research and seek a little bit more understanding. That's what I think we can start with that. Let's keep going. We're almost done with this. We got a couple more minutes.
Not yet joined them, but are left behind, that on them no fear shall come, nor shall they grieve. They rejoice in a grace and a bounty from Allah, and that Allah will not waste the reward of the believers. The nation of victory and success that Allah has promised. It is He who has sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of truth to make it victorious over all other religions, even though the polytheists hate it. Allah has decreed that verily it is I and my messengers who shall be victorious. Verily, Allah is all-powerful, almighty. The Islamic nation that was able to dismiss and destroy the previous evil empires like yourself, the nation that rejects your attacks, wishes to remove your evils, and is prepared to fight you. You are well aware that the Islamic nation, from the very core of its soul, despises your haughtiness and arrogance. If the Americans refuse to listen to our advice and the goodness, guidance, and righteousness that we call them to, then be aware that you will lose this crusade Bush began, just like the other previous crusades in which you were humiliated by the hands of the Mujahideen, fleeing to your home in great silence and disgrace. If the Americans do not respond, then their fate will be that of the Soviets who fled from Afghanistan to deal with their military defeat, political breakup, ideological downfall, and economic bankruptcy. This is our message to the Americans as an answer to theirs. Do they now know why we fight them, and over which form of ignorance, by the permission of Allah, we shall be victorious?
It's a heavy one. And as they were finishing up, I couldn't help but think that, they do have to have, you got to remember, this is a letter to America. So there's going to be, I don't know if this is the right word, but sensationalism is the word that comes to mind, where he's trying to establish some fear in Americans. So hopefully, we can get our act together, or call for our politicians to get our acts together. And we see that happening even now. What people will call out, this is a letter to the Iranians, not the government, but you need to, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing, where it's like, you're saying like, oh, we don't care if we die, we'll survive, that type of thing. I get it. But I'm still shaking my head. It's just not like, you know what's so sad is the things that when you look around at culture, and maybe this doesn't just apply to this standpoint, but you know how they say, like, the older you get, like your dad, your vision of your dad, it goes through different stages where you look at him like a godly figure, like your hero. And then you realize, like, oh, dad's human. Like, dad actually has made a mistake in his life, like that type of thing. I see that with the country, and perhaps a lot of us never get out of that phase of seeing America as that godly, heroic figure. So a large portion of us always remain ignorant and never see things with a certain amount of clarity that would allow us to call out some of the negative things and evil things that we do. It's yeah, it's you hear those type of things. Hearing certain people have such influence can be pretty scary. But at the end of the day, I don't know if good always beats evil, if good always wins over evil, but something that I've learned in sports, I know I'm not going to let y'all go without a sports analogy or sports reference, is that when you think you're going to lose, you're probably going to lose. So it may not be realistic to think that we can change our mindset, shift our mindset to have a better perspective on looking at a lot of these things. It may not be realistic, but I know it's not going to happen if I think otherwise. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. So Steve wrote, those numbers are representative of the effectiveness of government and those 262 million people that have died by democide, government instruction in the 20th century. Those numbers are representative of the effectiveness of government-based propaganda. Let's keep that in the back of our mind. For a second, I was about to change my name to Akil. I think a lot of people go through different stages. It's funny. I don't know if y'all recall, but I remember for a while I was getting ready to change my last name to X. This is back in 2014, 15, when I was living up in Canada. I was like sold on it. Matter of fact, I had it all in my mind. I said, if I play another year, which I knew that I was going to not play another year, I said that the back of my jersey is going to have an X on it, because I was just so disgusted in me having the last name that I had, just being totally honest at that time. It's like it almost feels, you know how, speaking of the Western movies, like, I don't know if y'all are Yellowstone fans, but anybody that they do cattle ranching, what do? They put the stamp on the cow to let them know that that's your property. That's how I was looking at my last name. Like, damn, like, just put this stamp like Caldwell. Like, where'd I get that last name from? Like, why is there a town next to where I grew up in named Caldwell? Why is the high school in the town that's right next to Montclair? It's funny, if you call my phone, or if I call you on my cell phone, it actually says Caldwell, New Jersey. But I used to always find it funny that the name of the high school is James Caldwell High School, which is my grandfather's name. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, I doubt that the guy who was named, that high school was named after, looked anything like my grandfather. You just start to really have these thoughts. And I don't think it should be seen as radical or anything like that, because look at the amounts that people are going through right now when it comes to what's going on in the Middle East to keep their culture, their history, their legacy intact. When it comes to Black people in America, we've just given everything up. We don't care. We don't do any research. We don't demand any research. We just, what's our history? We go, Black history. It'll come February. We'll knock it out in 28 days. And we'll talk about the same things. You walk through any school, who are you going to see? Maybe a little bit of Malcolm, Martin, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, the same old characters that we see. And that's going to be our history. Nothing's going to date back. We have no culture. When you go into the African American History Museum, look at the people that have the biggest stages at the museum. It's mostly the entertainers and athletes and stuff like that. It's like, yo, this is something that we're really standing on, as proud of our history, like just this couple hundred years, but we don't demand it. We don't demand it. So yeah, that part. Steve wrote, well-researched and referenced paper on the subject of government democide. I'm definitely going to be looking into that. All right. So what, something that I wanted to show y'all, if I could find it real quickly. Maybe I'll show it at the end. I'll do it in the middle of it. So for a lot of y'all, shout out to my favorite professor, Professor King. I saw that she joined our Patreon, which is dope. But one thing that I wanted to share with y'all is our newsletter. So we did a newsletter for July, and of course I'm gonna share it with you all, give you guys access to it. But I realized when I initially put it up, it wasn't accessible to everybody. So I want to make sure that I share that with you all. And then hopefully that'll get you more and more familiar with what we're doing on the Patreon. But check that out. You should be able to, I think you can join that. You can just join with the free membership. You don't even have to pay to have access to this. So that's our July newsletter, where we talk about health, wellness, personal development, professional development. We do certain challenges. Maya, she influenced the watermelon fast. Hopefully I'm gonna do it sooner than later. But it just gets us to learn about some of the things that are going to help improve our lives from an overall wellness standpoint, and We have, I think we have some information on the book club on there, but just check that out when you all get a chance. Check that out when you all get a chance. That's just something that, wanted to put together for us all to, hopefully, what do we always say? That our goal is to become the best versions of ourselves, right? So to elevate on purpose. So hopefully that'll help. All right. So next we're going to get into this video. I already have it queued up. Damn, sometimes having these conversations on some of these topics, they just be so heavy, where I want to pivot sometimes. But just to kind of continue this discussion, and I don't even know if we're going to make it to the next video. Matter of fact, this is what we'll do. This conversation that I'm getting ready to show y'all, I'll just share it with you all. I'm not going to really make as many comments on it because I think we've talked a lot about it just in the first hour and a half, but just to kind of confirm some of the things and some of the roles that we've played in a lot of these evil acts and atrocities, I think it's important. Now, I'm conflicted, and I think a lot of us are conflicted, and I think it's okay for us to be conflicted. Like, I want to be a proud American. I want to be proud. I don't want to be walking around miserable, hating the country that I live in, because if I'm doing those things, then that means I need to go somewhere else. And I like it here. I like the people here. And I can, you go somewhere else, things aren't perfect there, then what, you're going to go somewhere else? So, I mean, but to each their own. It may be worth it for some people to go other places, but as of right now, I would love to, figure out how I can just play my role as an American and improving things just in my little old life and being the change that I want to see in the world. And hopefully it, grown from there. And hopefully all of us are doing the same. So let me just, so a lot of the stuff I say that to say, a lot of the stuff that we're pointing out, it could be like a little bit depressing at times, but we have to learn this stuff. We have to understand it, because if we don't, then we're not going to be able to improve on it. And maybe before we can even start talking about improving and moving in the right direction, at least we can get a heads up to say, oh, at least I'm going to stop moving in this wrong direction. When we start hearing all the propaganda that comes our way, all the justifications of these things that are going on throughout the world and things that we have a direct impact on, maybe it'll at least say like, hold on, I don't know about that, or we won't embrace it as much as we otherwise would. So let's take a look at this. This Tucker Carlson interview. It's with a guy named Christian Malazarte, I believe. Christian Malazarte is his name, I believe. No, I'm sorry. Christian Malazarte is the person that posted it. The guys, this is Scott Horton. So this is Scott Horton on the Tucker Carlson show. Tucker Carlson, my apologies. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'll be in the corner, and I'm not going to really comment much, but I just want y'all to absorb what's happening in this conversation.
And America was America that paid for German chemical weapons that Saddam Hussein, that they provided to Saddam Hussein, that he used not just mustard gas, but including sarin and tabe and nerve gas that they used to target Iranians in the field.
We know that
for certain. And we know that they supplied them with satellite intelligence to use.
I want to run it back. I'm sorry.
And America was America that paid for German chemical weapons that Saddam Hussein, that they provided to Saddam Hussein, that he used not just mustard gas, but including sarin and tabe and nerve gas that they used to target Iranians in the field.
We know that
for
certain.
And we know that they supplied them with satellite intelligence to use to target.
The U.S. government made it possible for Saddam to use chemical weapons against the Iranians.
That's right.
I've heard that. That's so crazy. It's like Fauci's working with the Chinese to develop, a global pandemic. It's like,
I'll tell you one, there's a many great footnotes about this, but one real great one is by Shane Harris, who's now at the Washington Post, a very official national security beat reporter, did a big special on this at foreignpolicy.com, the establishment journal. It was back 10 years ago or something, about where did Saddam get all his chemical weapons.
But that's just absolutely crazy, since chemical weapons were a big part of the justification for invading Iraq in 2003.
That's right. Well, we'll get there in just a minute.
No, but I know, but it's just like, so I have heard that, the U.S. paid for the chemical weapons that Saddam used against the Iranians and the Kurds.
And they even spun it for him when he
That's
used them
so
against the Kurds.
bonkers
They
that-
blamed it on Iran. The DIA did a big report blaming it on Iran when Saddam gassed Halabja, which, was in Colin Powell's speech of why we have to attack them. And I was like, back then, y'all covered for him. I mean, Colin Powell was Reagan's national security advisor, right? He was in the administration at the time when they blamed that on Iran.
So crazy.
It is.
And just to linger for one more moment, we know that's true.
Oh, yeah. There's, in fact, at FFF.org, the Future Freedom Foundation, there's an article by Jacob Hornberger that I believe is called Where Did Saddam Get His WMD? And he has links to like 10 very thorough sources all about this. There's no question about it. They admitted over and over. Post, Times, Newsweek,
That
Wall
is
Street Journal,
just
whatever.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then, 20 years later, we're invading Iraq because he might have chemical weapons.
Right. And it turned out
no one mentions this?
Yeah. And it turned out years later, the only ones that they ever found in the country were from the 80s. Stuff that America had helped them purchase from the Europeans then. Was the only stuff that anyone ever found. And that was why they covered it up, was because this is stuff that Ronald Reagan and George Bush's father had helped supply them. And so we don't really want to emphasize that so much when the claim had been that there was an ongoing program to develop this stuff circa early 2000s, which of course couldn't have been further from the truth.
I promise y'all, I didn't hear that last part. I didn't watch that full video. So I didn't know that he was going to connect us supplying that. Yeah. The same thing that there seems to be a lot of connections with a lot of these folk. And isn't that something that like we heard about with Israel and Israel? I forget the exact, so I'm not going to get into detail, but I believe Netanyahu was providing certain money to a certain group that ended up getting funded to Hamas or something like that. I don't know. I got to look it up a little bit more, but it seems as if, when I was growing up learning about all this stuff, I'm thinking like, oh, these people aren't like, they don't know each other. They don't know these people. And then you start to learn like, oh, this just seems like some family beef, like some gang stuff, right? Some street gang type of stuff that y'all are just bringing everybody else in and getting everybody involved with. So let's move on to our last video for today. We probably won't get through the entire thing. But I want to show y'all, and I believe I screenshot it at 13. What's the timestamp? 1 second. Let's screenshot the timestamp. I think it's, matter of fact, let's just take a guess. If my memory serves me correctly, if this CTE is not kicking in, then I'll be correct. I think it was around the 13-minute mark. Let's take a look at this. You guys let me know your thoughts, and we'll go from there. But this is what I mentioned earlier about Adam saying, and then we'll go to the beginning of the video. But I just want to make sure that I highlight this first.
There will be peace when the terrorists, the Palestinians, what have you, love their children more than they hate Israel. If you love your children more than you hate Israel, then you'll want your children to live and grow and not have them in indoctrination jihad camps. How many times have you seen videos of 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds wearing terrorist outfits with
Adam,
guns?
that's not
This whole
changing.
society has been indoctrinated.
That's not changing.
It's just a very interesting viewpoint. And, even as I was talking to my bro Pete yesterday, it's like, okay, that's true. But shouldn't everybody embrace that mindset? Shouldn't everybody embrace that mindset? Because I think we live in a world where we think that I saw the camera just go out. Let me make sure we're still up. We live in a world where we think that the killer, the person who does the killing, is not punished or go through things. It's just the punishment of the person who gets killed. And I just find that very hard to believe. Like I said, I've never killed anybody, but the and hopefully never have to. And the things that I see on YouTube with a lot of these war veterans who experience PTSD, not even just with war, you hear a lot of people even in street stuff where it's like they speak on the things that they deal with after, committing crime, and it's heavy on you. And Adam seems to think that there's no impact with, I guess, the Jewish kids that are then put into another war, that the impact is just on the other side. And that's easy to say from a standpoint where you're doing the majority of killing, where you feel like you're the bully, where you have superior weapons, where you have the United States behind you. All that may seem true, but or all that may be true, but I think that we need to get to a point where we're understanding that no matter what role you play in it, you're going to have an impact on your life, I would think. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but let's get back to the beginning of the video. So this video is pretty much based on now Patrick Bet David, who I've called out consistently on his comments and everything else. And it's funny. So real quick story. So the guy that just said that, I saw him the other day. Maya and I saw him the other day when we were grabbing some food with one of our homegirls down here. And shout out to Kiana. Shout out to Kiana. Y'all gonna meet Kiana real soon. Kiana just moved out here. She's 18, just moved from London. Crazy story. She's out here, just moved and just started to chase her dreams. She got a dope personality. Y'all gonna meet her soon. She's just figuring some stuff out first. But we were eating with them, and then Adam walks up because he lives, I think, around the corner. And I just said what's up to him, and it seemed like he was a little uneasy, like wondering like why, like, and even Maya was sitting there like, oh, you know him? And Keanu was sitting there like, oh, it seemed like you knew him the way that you went up to him, not just, just shook his, like, yo, what's up? Like, Adam, like, yeah. And then because I've seen him before in Miami, and he always came across, when I saw him in person came across that, it's cool. And, just said what's up. I watch a lot of his shows. Now, I disagree with a lot of his stances on Israel, just to be totally honest, but said what's up. So I don't even know why I started telling that, but I was going to say some other stuff, but I'm not. But let's just keep going. Yeah, I'm not. Let's just keep going. But it's just interesting to see people's energy on the show compared to their energy in real life. Not to say that let's just keep going.
Trump says Israel agrees to conditions of 60-day ceasefire as proposal heads to Hamas. President Trump revealed on Tuesday that Israel has agreed to the conditions of the 60-day ceasefire with Hamas. My representative is this the one, Rob, if you have, okay, my representative had a long and productive meeting with Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the 60 days and the conditions during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. The Qataris and the Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace, will deliver this final proposal. I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes this deal because it will not get better. It will only get worse. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Adam, your thoughts on this?
Well, Trump's trying to run the table and work out all these deals that he's been working on. It first started with India and Pakistan a couple of weeks ago. We see that the ceasefire between Iran and Israel is holding, and now he's moving on to Gaza, and then hopefully he can run the table on Russia and Ukraine. But Trump is a deal maker, and he's trying to cut a deal. So what's happening here, in my opinion, there's a proposal, there's conditions, and what's the title of the article? That Israel has agreed to the conditions, is it not? So Israel has agreed. Now, Israel, in my opinion, they have two stipulations. Number one, can we get our hostages back? Those people that you just kind of like ran up on and stole and hijacked and killed a lot of people, that whole thing.
Can we get our hostages back? Those people that you kind of ran up on and stole. I guess their response would be, well, can we get our land back? That land that you kind of just ran up on, those homes that we were in and kind of stole. Can we get but I guess I'm looking at it the wrong way. And to be clear, I want to make sure that I go back and clarify this. When I said that people's energy is different in person, it wasn't like a punkish energy in person. What I end up seeing, and I think this happens and has happened with me, is that, you know, sometimes you'll be passionate discussing certain things on here, but that doesn't mean that you're just that way all day, every day in day-to-day life. Actually, it's pretty much the opposite. This is exhausting. I'll be totally honest with you. But I just want to say that. But going back to what Adam said, it's like this is what I mean about the hypocrisy and the elitism. Like, how is it so easy for you to see something as simple as, oh, well, yeah, can we get our hostages back? You know, the ones that you stole, and you're trying to be a little funny with it and saying like, yeah, that'll just end everything. But you can't see that, well, you know, we were living in these homes and y'all kind of just came in and just took them and took the land and declared it as yours with the British government or whoever else was behind it. America, I believe, had a role to play in it as well. And like, just give us our land back. Or maybe indigenous people in America should be able to go up to Adam and say, and different people in America who are not indigenous to America, and just say, hey, you know, can we just, you know, get our land back? Everything is so simple. And that seems to be a reoccurring theme when it comes to religious-based conversations. It's like, well, we'll look at it literally here when it benefits us, but then we'll use just an interpretation when it benefits us over here. But we take that literally, but it's just a lot of inconsistencies. But let's keep going. I'll run it back what he said, and then hopefully I won't interrupt for a while. We're only going to watch a couple more minutes of this.
And what's the title of the article? That Israel has agreed to the conditions, is it not? So Israel has agreed. Now, Israel, in my opinion, they have two stipulations. Number one, can we get our hostages back? You know, those people that you just kind of like ran up on and stole and hijacked and killed a lot of people, you know, that whole thing. And then number two, this is kind of important. Yeah, stop terrorizing us. We'd like that. We'd like to just live in peace and prosperity and not have missiles from Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas and Islamic Jihad and all the terror crew out there just terrorizing people, because, you know, that's what terrorists do. They terrorize. Meanwhile, we're literally negotiating with terrorists. And, you know, the whole phrase about not negotiating with terrorists. And then Hamas comes back. And what did Trump say? That they basically gave an unacceptable counteroffer. So the story kind of goes like, all right, yeah, we'll give you the hostages back. Some are going to be dead. Sorry about that. But the second part, the whole like stopping jihad, yeah, we can't do that. Like Diddy, we can't stop, won't stop. That's just kind of what we do. It's kind of in our charter that you can't live. So in my opinion, this is one big poker game. And
I'm pretty sure that a lot of people would say that that's the same energy of Zionism. I'm telling y'all right now, the reason why the same things, you can have the same thing, but on different sides, and it be justified and seen clearly on this side, but when the other side applies those same principles to the same situation, one is terror and the other is entitlement. What we feel like we're entitled to compared to this other group committing terror against us. It's just, I'm telling y'all, this is just the only way to look at this and to understand how people justify it is to believe that one group thinks that they're better than the other. That's it. There's no other way around it.
You know, you talked about the word tilt the other day, Pat.
Yep.
You know, when you're throwing good money after bad money, oh my God, I'm on tilt. Well, in poker or in cards, it's all about who has the leverage. Now, Hamas, using a Trump quote, Hamas don't got the cards, right, Zelensky? So meanwhile, Israel has a full house. They got 3 kings, 2 queens. They just eliminated all the terror proxies surrounding them. With the help of America, eliminated Iran's nuclear capabilities. And Hamas, who's basically holding a pair of 2s and maybe an ace up their sleeve, which whatever that is, which doesn't exist, they're like, yeah, we're going to negotiate here. If this were a real negotiation, like an actual business negotiation, Israel would just run over Gaza and Hamas and just say, better luck next time. But they're trying to sort of play the geopolitical nice guy without wiping out this entire community.
Tom.
We'll see.
Well, they kind of already wiped out the entire community of Palestine. But I don't. Do I even need to comment on this? I don't even think I need to comment on this.
What happened?
How do you sit there and say, second request is dismantling Hamas? How do you? What does it mean to dismantle Hamas?
And so that's the second request, to dismantle Hamas, to make this ceasefire last. I think we've seen since October 7, 2023, you can't dismantle Hamas. You can't get rid of an ideology. Matter of fact, we're only making it worse when you destroy an entire country. You're making people more extreme. You're making people more radical. You're sending out more of this energy to return a more radical energy back your way. It's impossible. So when they include that in the deal, it's almost as if you know how you make a deal with somebody that you know that it's impossible for the other side to accept. So therefore, it just justifies us who, since we have the big weapon, since we have the power of America behind us, we can let our thing swing. And that's the energy that Adam just displayed. He talks all of this stuff, and he's right, because America is backing Israel. But it's very, another sports analogy. You know, it's one thing to talk ish when you're up by 30 points, or to talk ish, you know, we're playing against a private school who they can recruit and they can do all this stuff. We're public, we're small, like whatever, maybe not smaller, but smaller physically, not in numbers. But all this stuff, it's like you're really talking ish when you have unfair advantages. You know what I mean? It just shows a lot about people's character, but that's cool. And then on the other side, even though, you know, a lot of these people, you know, you hear bin Laden's letter, and it's like, you know, you guys, okay, you're showing some courage, but perhaps you shouldn't be risking the lives of your people either. Perhaps you should know when the odds are not in your favor. Now, I understand that, you know, you believe, or you've convinced yourself, or maybe that is the way that your religion has been taught to you, and that you're teaching other people that it's courageous and that to be a martyr and all these different things. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. There is a certain level of, I don't know if respect is the right word, but there's a certain level just from a commitment standpoint. See, if we committed to peace the same way that Israel and Palestine and a lot of the people in that region have committed to not getting along, regardless of where's the blame, if we showed that same level of commitment to peace, we would be in a much better place. So hopefully what I'm saying makes sense.
What does that ask mean? How does a Hamas organization get dismantled?
So I think that there's really only one angle I can think.
Honestly, I'm exhausted with all this. I'm exhausted with all this. I'm exhausted with all this. I have 3 questions for y'all. That's it for that part. 3 questions for y'all that I want to leave y'all with. We're going to completely shift gears as we wrap up the show. 3 questions for y'all. What is the impact that you want to make on this world? Think about it. Take some time to think about these 3 questions over the next couple of days. That's all of our homework, or, you know, I'm not giving y'all homework, but if you choose to indulge, then here it is for you. 3 questions. 1, what is the impact that you want to make on the world? What is the impact that we want to make on this world, whoever we is for you? 2, what is it going to take from a sacrifice standpoint and commitment standpoint in order to accomplish the thing that you want to make an impact with? And number 3, are you willing to do it? Number 1 is, what impact do you want to make on this world? Number 2 is, what is it going to require out of you to make that impact on the world? And number 3, are you built for it? Are you willing to commit to it? You don't have to be built for it now, but are you willing to commit to it? Are you willing to make the decision that, yes, I'm going to move with consistency and a disciplined commitment in order to accomplish these things? That's it. Just 3 questions to think about. I just have been having that personal legend on my mind a lot. I've just been having, you know, you look at, and maybe it's because I was looking at these Western movies where, you know, even though obviously you guys heard for the last 2 hours, the negative thoughts that came to mind and the complications that were going through my mind with how people came to America and just got rid of people, committed a genocide. And that's the amazing country that we live in today. That's the land that we live on today. As much as I hated the things that were going on, I looked at these people and I'm like, damn, they're risking their lives. Like they had, there were people that were going to land that was not occupied by anybody that looked like them. They didn't know the land. They didn't know when's the next time they were going to run into water, all these things. And they decided to just go to these areas, plant a flag, and start farming it, risking the raids that would happen. You get your entire camp family killed because you want to take the risk in planting your flag somewhere that is not yours. So as I'm looking at it, I'm like, damn, a lot of these people who did that, you look at maybe 10 generations later down the line of what we're living in now, and that's still some of the same land that they lived on. That's the reason why their family, instead of growing up in Europe or instead of growing up in different areas, are here now. A lot of it showed a lot of the Chinese people that came over as well to work on the railroads and other things out west as well. And it's like these people had the courage. I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of that, had the courage to go out there and do something to change the entire trajectory of their families' lives. I look at a lot of the migrants that come in illegally, that the sacrifices that they make, the risks that they take to uproot their entire family, take a risk, leave sometimes their entire family. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, damn, like they really took a risk. Like, what do we risk nowadays? like we won't even risk giving up our weekend or risk, giving up making sure that we can go out for drinks on the week. I don't know. We just don't risk much. So, and I was just thinking about the legacy that I want to leave behind and the fun that I want to have in exploring certain things, the pain that I'm going to go through, the challenges, and how I'm going to come out better on the other end. Like I want to play. Like I want to play in some of the big games of life. And that's what got me just thinking about my personal legend. What is, all these ideas that we have. Oh, I want to live on a farm. I want to start a farm. I want to start a homestead. I want to go off grid, all this stuff. Well, who's going to do it? Do it, right? Take a risk. Oh, well, my money, I want to have this amount saved up. I want it to be a comfortable move, all that stuff. This comfort kills our dreams a lot of ways. It kills our dreams a lot of ways. So this is just some thoughts that I have had. So those 3 questions, what's going to be the impact that you want to make? What do you want to, not even, I don't want to say be known for, but what do you want to know yourself as? What are you going to commit to do? 2, what is it going to take to get there? And 3, are you willing to do it? Shout out to Ant in the building. Ant wrote, it's not grandiose, but I'm currently in the process through God of breaking generational curses in 3 different bloodlines. I do believe my purpose to be greater. If I go today, this happened. That's dope, bro. That's dope. That's amazing, man. I'm starting to think God uses me to heal trauma and damage. That may be your purpose, bro. Matter of fact, it doesn't even have to, we don't even have to say may. If you're starting to think it, and we know as we think if that's what we become. So you don't even got to say you think God. You're already doing it. So therefore, that's I would believe that that's part of your purpose. That's part of your purpose, bro, including healing yourself, which is probably the most important part, right? To heal others, we got to make sure we're healing ourselves, and even if we're doing it simultaneously. So that's dope. That's dope. So y'all know what we do at the end of every show. I'm going to actually, let me put that link back in the chat for the people that didn't get to see the July newsletter for our Patreon. So y'all make sure that y'all check that out. Maybe we can commit to some of the challenges, the fasting together. So maybe we'll talk about that on Friday. Maybe we can set up like a day where we're all going to do a watermelon fast, reset our system, and just get healthier together. How dope would that be? Ant, you talking about healing yourself, the trauma and the damage. A lot of that can be healed, through the food that we eat and the things that we put in our body that I believe impacts us. I just think that there's that mind, body, soul connection But to each their own, to each their own. So let's take our 45 seconds to meditate, manifest, whatever it is that you believe you need to do. Every exhale, we're releasing all the negative energy. Every inhaling the positive. So eventually we're just putting out positive and refueling ourselves with more positive energy. So that's the goal. That's the goal in life. That's the goal with our bodies, our overall wellness, everything across the board. It's funny how you see all the consistencies in different areas and aspects of our life. But yeah. Let me read Ant's comment and then we'll get into our 45 seconds. The sacrifice to do this is trying to suppress my vices and walk by example. I'm not perfect. I enjoy life to the fullest, but I can't do what I have to do without leading by example. That's a fact, bro. That's a fact, man. We're all trying to overcome our vices. And the wild part about it is the more successful we become, the more access that we have to a lot of these vices. So it's but that's the challenge, right? If we want to win bigger, we got to overcome bigger. So definitely, as Steve said, praying for you on your journey. And hopefully we can all be a part of it as well. So 45 seconds starting now. Close your eyes if you feel like it, or if you're in a safe place first and foremost. And give yourself whatever you need to. Obviously, you know what we set out every Sunday and Monday to make this our greatest week ever. 45 seconds starting now. Oh, whoa, my fault. That went well over 45 seconds. I'm over here in the zone. Yo, I just thought of a funny challenge that I'm not sure if I'm going to put it up. First, I got to make sure that I can accomplish it or commit to it myself. But all right, man. All right. Mine started at age 21. That's dope. Professor. I love that, Steve. You started early. That's literally the challenge. Shy Bug in the building. What's up, Shy? All right, on that note, y'all know we come here to do elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, challenging ourselves to become the best leaders we can become and to grow into the people that we need to become to accomplish these amazing goals that we set forth for ourselves. Strength and honor, onward and upward. Get to the bag. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say get to the bag, all the things that are going to align with you, pursuing your purpose, pursuing purposeful abundance, and being on the trajectory of purposeful abundance and striving for our personal legend, that impact that we're saying. So once again, those three questions: what do I want to get out of life? What is the impact that I want to make? 2, what's it going to take to accomplish it? 3, am I willing to commit to it on a consistent basis? And on that note, you got to decide what's in your bag. Those are all the little things that we do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month in order to accomplish our bigger goals and the focuses that we have on them. So the focuses that I have, the things that I like to make sure that I'm aligned with: peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and in everything we do, integrity. And on that note, Ant sent the fire emojis on behalf of our brother Queez. Have a great week, great people. Onward and upward from Big Bro Steve. And I love y'all, man. I love y'all. I'll see y'all soon. Ew.